Hello everyone, and welcome to Tony's Comic Spotlight. In this weekly episodic series, I spotlight some of the best comics put to print. In today's video, we shine the spotlight on Marvel Spotlight issue number 2 from 1972, celebrating the first appearance of Jack Russell, the Werewolf by Night. If you are enjoying the content, please feel free to like and subscribe, and don't forget to ring the bell to be notified of our latest videos. Feel free to leave a comment as well. I hope you enjoy the videos. And now, on to our featured story. Story number 1, Night of Full Moon, Night of Fear. In Los Angeles, a mugger skulks about the alleyways in search of prey. He is not the only hunter lurking in the shadows this evening, however. A snarling werewolf leaps out and attacks the mugger, killing him. A motorcycle cop chances upon the scene and fires 2 shots towards the creature. The werewolf bounds off into the night, but one of the policeman's bullets manages to graze its arm. The werewolf races frantically down back alleys in the light of the full moon. The next morning, young Jack Russell awakens in his bedroom with a start. He cannot understand why he had a dream that he was a werewolf. He grows concerned, however, as he looks down and sees a cut across his left shoulder, the same area that was struck by the officer's bullet. As Jack gets dressed, his mother Laura enters the room. Today is Jack's 18th birthday, and Laura wants him to spend it with his stepfather Philip. Jack never cared for Philip, and he despises the dominating hold that the man appears to have over his mother. As Jack comes downstairs, he sees his mother having an argument with Philip's chauffeur, Max Grant. Frustrated, Jack leaves. That evening, Jack goes to a friend's house in Malibu. As the full moon begins to rise, sharp blisters of pain surge through him. He is forced to run from the house. He runs down to the beach just as he transforms into a werewolf. Staring down into the water, the fleeting remnants of Jack's personality begin to realize that he didn't have a dream the night before. He truly is a werewolf. Instinctively, the werewolf finds himself drawn to a beach house. He smashes through a patio door where he finds a growling guard dog. The dog attacks him, and the werewolf struggles with the beast for several minutes before hurling it outside. The werewolf leaps out of the window and bays at the moon. The next morning, Philip Russell finds Jack unconscious on the beach. He brings him back to the house where he finds his sister, Lisa, crying hysterically. Philip explains to Jack that his mother went out last evening looking for him and was in a serious car accident. She has been admitted to a local hospital and is in critical condition. She is not expected to survive the night. Philip has Dr. Allen give Jack a strong sedative and tells him to get some rest. Through the haze of drugs, Jack overhears Philip talking with the chauffeur, Max Grant. Philip agrees to meet Grant at an abandoned warehouse later that evening for a payoff. Unable to concentrate on the issue any further, Jack falls asleep. Hours later, when Jack awakens, he rushes down to the hospital to see his mother. She is barely conscious, but she is strong enough to warn Jack that a curse has been placed upon him, a curse that forces him to transform into a monster on the night of his 18th birthday. Jack presses her for an explanation. Laura explains that 20 years ago she was a student on holiday in Transylvania. She met, fell in love with, and ultimately married a baron named Gregory Russoff. For 3 nights out of every month, Russoff would steal himself inside of a tower room in his castle with instructions to never be disturbed. He told his young wife that he was studying. One evening, however, a lightning storm swept through the Baltic nation and a stray boat blasted a hole in the side of the tower. That same night, witnesses claimed to have seen a werewolf prowling the countryside. Several of the town elders visited Russoff Castle to inquire with the baron, but when Laura inspected the tower room, he was nowhere to be found. Still later, a group of hunters armed with silver bullets cornered the werewolf and shot him. It was then that they discovered that the werewolf was actually the baron. As she concludes her tale, Jack realizes that Laura married Philip in the hopes of wiping out his true father's bloody memory. Seeing the anger rising within him, Laura makes Jack promise that he will never raise a hand in anger to his stepfather. Jack swears a vow, and Laura passes away. The full moon rises, and Jack feels the change begin to take effect. He races outside the hospital and begins prowling the city. Instinctively, the werewolf heads towards an empty warehouse where he finds Max Grant. Max is a large muscular and does not believe that Jack is a true werewolf. He tackles the creature and holds his own for several minutes. During the melee, Grant confesses that Philip owes him $10,000 for sabotaging the brakes on Laura's car. With Laura dead, Philip stands to inherit the entire Russoff fortune. Even as a werewolf, a small part of Jack's subconscious recognizes what he hears and sinks his teeth into Grant's neck. Max falls to the ground dead. Moments later, a car pulls up and Philip Russell enters the warehouse. Their werewolf is poised to attack, but Jack's mind recalls the deathbed promise he made to his mother. Running off into the night, the werewolf angrily howls at the moon. Story number 2, Where Gargoyles Dwell. Venus takes a taxicab to the Gray Car building on West 51st Street. She asks the elevator operator to bring her to the Corpo Construction Company on the 13th floor, but tells her that there is no 13th floor to the Gray Car building. She gets off on the 14th floor and finds a small stairwell that takes her down to an area between the two floors. She opens the door to room 1319. Inside, the room is in shambles and there are several dead bodies on the floor. A gargoyle bust calling itself Gara, King of Gargoyles, springs to life and tries to kill Venus. She manages to avoid the flying stone bust and leaves the building. Venus contacts her friend Whit Hammond and explains what happened. Whit, in turn, telephones the police, who show up at the Gray Car building to investigate the matter. However, they cannot locate the 13th floor. The stairwell that Venus used earlier has disappeared. The police lieutenant chides Venus for sending him on a wild goose chase and warns her to leave him alone. Venus returns later that evening and scales the cables of the elevator shaft until she finds another entranceway to the elusive 13th floor. The room is still in shambles, but the gargoyle appears to be inert. Inside the room is Silvio Corpo, the daughter of Henry Corpo, the founder of Corpo Construction Company. Sylvia professes that she is the queen of the gargoyles and is responsible for bringing the statues to life. However, the gargoyles have since turned against her and they now wish to kill her. Venus and Sylvia fight one another, during which time Gara and the other gargoyles return to life. They begin chasing Sylvia until she stumbles and falls into the empty elevator shaft. The elevator car snaps and plummets down, crushing Sylvia and the gargoyles. Night of Full Moon, Night of Fear plot by Roy and Gene Thomas. The script was by Jerry Conway. This issue introduces the character of Jack Russell, commonly referred to as the Werewolf by Night. This issue is the first part of a three-part arc, which eventually leads into the first issue of the Werewolf by Night ongoing comic book series. Letterer John Costanza is credited as John Costa in this issue. Where Gargoyles Dwell was originally printed in Venus issue number 16. Night of Full Moon, Night of Fear was partially reprinted in the 1974 Werewolf book and record set by Power Records. First and foremost, Jack Russell is the original Werewolf by Night from Marvel Comics. Legendary Marvel Comics writer-editor Roy Thomas and his wife Jeannie came up with the idea to create a werewolf in the Marvel Universe in the early 70s after the loosening of the Comics Code Authority's rules around depicting characters like werewolves, vampires, and zombies in comics. Stan Lee himself came up with the name Werewolf by Night, and in 1972's Marvel Spotlight number 2, writer Jerry Conway and artist Mike Plug solidified the character and early backstory of Jack Russell. It may seem obvious, but the character has strong ties to the horror genre. It debuted in 1954 under Atlas Comics. Werewolf by Night was inspired by the werewolf movies and serials at the time. This was during a period where comics were tending to dump. They would move to whichever genre was popular at the time and then pass on from there very quickly. Werewolf by Night therefore was only created due to the rising demand in the entertainment industry for characters like him, Dracula, and other monsters. The problem with these new horror comics is that the Comics Code was created by the industry, limiting the sort of content they could produce. A character like Werewolf by Night was in direct violation of these rules and therefore had to be removed from the titles. The character didn't appear again in 1972 when enforcement of the code was less rigorous. He immediately gained his own space in a comic series known as Marvel Spotlight. The character has appeared on and off ever since, and the code's final demise in 2011 has provided even more opportunities for characters like this one. The Russell family is one of the bloodlines that still carries this wolf curse within them. Gregor Russoff was the first to be infected with the curse. He tried to kill Dracula to avenge his wife, but instead got bitten by a werewolf. He passed his curse on to his ancestor, Jacob Russoff, who would change his name to Russell. However, the curse can go dormant in families for a time, either skipping generations or simply waiting for something sinister or magical to activate them. The thing that really made this curse worse in the Russell family is the use of the Darkhold. The Darkhold is a book of evil magic that has been seen throughout the Marvel Universe and has actually appeared in parts of the MCU as well. The Werewolf by Night's return was therefore partially caused by the use of the Darkhold. Jacob's ancestor Grigori used the book by reading a passage relating to the origin of lycanthropy, the art of changing into a werewolf, although not always at will. There's a number of limitations to Russell's werewolf aspect. Originally, Jack would only turn into a werewolf on a night with a full moon, as the horror movie tradition states. At some point, he went through a transformation where he could turn into a beast every night. However, with some help from the likes of Iron Man and even Morbius, as well as an incredibly long journey, Jack can now turn into a werewolf at will. However, he still has no control over his abilities when there's a full moon in the sky. With Jack able to turn into a werewolf, along with this comes a number of abilities associated with the character. For a start, he becomes a wolf-like monster, although over time he has been less human-looking. He gains considerable size and strength and has sharp teeth. He has increased durability, enhanced speed, agility, and strength, and amazing healing abilities. Deadpool once shot his head clean off and it actually grew back. Much like others in his species, though, he can be killed with silver. This is the character's major weakness. Most characters in Marvel at one stage or another end up joining some sort of heroic or villainous team. As you might expect, this werewolf followed exactly the same path and teamed up with a number of other horror-related creatures. This league of anti-heroes was known as the Legion of Monsters. They've taken on a number of formations, but members have included Ghost Rider, Morbius the Living Vampire, a Mummy, and even the Man-Thing. It's quite a mix of mythical creatures, monsters, and demons. Several horror characters emerged in Marvel Comics in the early 1970s, including Dracula. Werewolf by Night fought the Lord of the Vampires in an epic storyline that crossed over between the original Werewolf by Night comic book and the Tomb of Dracula. Russell seeks clues to the origin of his curse, leading him to Dracula and a major battle. The Jack Russell Werewolf by Night debuted in the 1970s, but the concept existed long before then. Werewolf by Night first appeared in Marvel Tales issue 116 in 1953. Writer Stan Lee reused the title and concept once the Marvel Universe property got off the ground, something he did routinely with other powerful Marvel alien monsters. The Comics Code Authority relented on some guidelines in 1971, leading to an explosion of horror-themed comic books from all publishers. Marvel swiftly returned to Werewolf by Night. Introducing Jack Russell in Marvel Spotlight issue 2 in 1972, he quickly graduated to his own series later that year. Unlike the original concept from the 1950s, the comic depicts Russell as a victim himself. He doesn't seek to hurt anyone, and when he does, it's usually criminals who try to accost him. I hope you enjoyed this look into Marvel Spotlight issue number 2, where we celebrate the first appearance of Jack Russell, the Werewolf by Night. If you're enjoying the content, please give us a like and subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And don't forget to ring the bell for future notifications. This Saturday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, Into the Comiverse episode 11 will be going live on the Comiverse YouTube channel. And since this is spooky season, this week's topic is going to be our favorite horror comic books. They can be based on movies, characters specifically for comics, horror, supernatural, whatever gets that spooky vibe going for October. We'll be talking about it. So I would love to have y'all join us. And then join me back next week as we talk about the first appearance of the Swamp Thing in House of Secrets issue number 92 from 1971. So until then, be safe, take care, and God bless. And thank you for your support.